sorted. Almost ready. Okay, we are ready to go. Welcome everybody. I'm Chef Saba and this is Yale Appliance. We're here in Framingham, Massachusetts. And today I'm going to be doing a live cooking demonstration featuring our induction cooktop in our beautiful Gaggenau kitchen. Now, the reason we're doing these live cooking demonstrations is to promote our home show, which is actually happening this weekend, the continuation of the home show. From the 13th to the 15th. During the home show, you'll get 0% financing and up to $1,200 in package credits. If you'd like to learn more about the home show, you're welcome to go to yaleappliance.com and schedule a customized showroom visit at one of our 3 showrooms, either here in Framingham, in Dorchester, or in Hanover, with one of our sales experts. All right, now, if you do have any comments or questions during our cooking demonstration today, feel free to send them through on our Facebook page or through Instagram as well. So, the first thing I'm going to show is a pasta meal. We're going to make a sauce, saute, and hold it to show the capabilities of holding sauces at low temperatures without scorching and burning. We're going to boil some pasta and poach some eggs as well. So the first thing that you always want to get started is the pasta water, because it does take some time to get it to a boil. Now, the great thing about induction is that if you have ever considered it or talked about it, you've probably learned that pasta boils in a matter of minutes on induction. So the other advantage of using induction is you can use something called the boost mode or the boost function. And that basically gives it like a surge of energy. So it does take energy from the other pans, but if you only have one pan that is requiring high heat, you can still use the other pans for low temperature cooking. So we're going to give our pasta water pan a surge of heat, and our smaller stock pot here I'm going to use for our poached eggs. So we just need to really bring that to a boil and simmer the water. But we can have that kind of just going while I prepare the sauce for you as well. So if you aren't aware of how induction actually works, it's a really interesting technology. So basically what we're doing here is using magnets and electricity to transfer heat directly to the cooking surface. So you're not actually cooking on a hot surface, you're using magnetic energy to create friction, which then heats the pan, which becomes your cooking vessel. So it's extremely safe, nothing will catch or burn. If anyone's taken a closer peek, you'll see that I have a piece of parchment paper down here, which is pretty cool that I'm actually cooking through the parchment paper, which means that this makes cleanup a whole lot easier. And when I talk about safety, that means nothing will scorch or burn, and it will actually be a lot less hot on the surface even after you're cooking. In case you put your hand down, or if you have small children and they might reach up and try to grab something, the surface will not be as hot as it would with a gas or an electric cooktop. Mind you, though, there will be some residual heat, but that will dissipate pretty quickly. So now I'm just sauteing my shallots in the pan here. I'm going to turn the heat up. There is a slight learning curve if you're just starting out with induction. Not huge, but you do have to kind of adjust your cooking style when you are using induction, because you can't see the flame. You can't see a big flame for a high heat or a small flame for a low heat. So you have to know what the numbers mean on your induction cooktop. So right now I'm going to saute here. This is like a medium-high temperature, and I have it set to 8. Now that number will vary from cooktop to cooktop. So don't use that as a general gauge for your temperature setting. So my pasta water is actually boiling already. What I'm going to do now is just bring it down. I'll salt it a little bit as well. I don't want to throw my pasta in just yet because I want the sauce to be ready to go so I can just drop the pasta in there. The pasta is only going to take about 2 minutes to cook. So The shallots are cooking up really nicely, a nice sizzle on them, and I'm gonna go ahead and add in the asparagus. So this pasta dish is something that I make pretty frequently here, especially when I'm showing the induction, because I'm doing so many different components and I want to show how efficiently each one of those works. So we're sauteing right now at a medium-high temperature. Later on for the next meal, I'm also going to sear to show you how hot an induction can get and how wonderfully you can sear with it. I'm showing you the boiling capability and how quickly that came to a boil. So you saw that live here. It's already boiling for us. And now I'm also going to poach eggs in a low simmering pot of water as well. So we have our asparagus going. Let's add a little bit of seasoning to that, a little salt and pepper, and then we'll add in our liquids as well. So feel free, if you guys have any questions, send them through. I can't say enough cool things about induction. I know it is an educational thing. A lot of people don't realize the benefits of induction. So, feel free to ask away. The other things I do want to cover about induction is the cookware. People don't realize that you can use your standard pots and pans on induction cooktops. This is all-clad that I'm using today. Most all-clad will work. You just have to make sure that it is a magnetized all-clad. Some of the older ones might not be. So just stick a magnet on the bottom, and if it sticks, then you're good. Now, your Dutch ovens, like your Le Creuset and your stoves, will work. Cast iron pans, such as Lodges, and more traditional cast iron, even if they're family heirlooms, should work. The one thing you should notice as I'm cooking, I'm not shaking my pan around. And that's because it is a glass surface. So you don't want to shake the pan around too much. You need the contact with the pan on the surface to get the best results, but also you don't want to scratch your cooking surface. So I'm going to go ahead and add white wine to the pan. Now that's another point I'd like to bring up, because if you try to add alcohol or wine on top of into a pan that's on top of a flame, you might it might catch on fire, you might have a flare up. So that's another benefit of induction, very safe. There's no heating, there's no flare-ups, there's nothing catching on fire. So I added my white wine, my chicken stock, and I'm just going to reduce that down. While I do that, let me throw in my pasta. Actually, let's do the eggs. Let's do our eggs. So in here, I have a nice simmer going. So what I'm going to do is add a little vinegar. This is the chefy top tip. If you've ever tried to poach eggs, make sure you use a little bit of vinegar. That helps the egg whites sort of catch. And then another trick is to first break the egg into a separate bowl and then give the water a little stir and then drop the egg right in. And that will help those egg whites kind of catch and come together. And that will help help you get a really nice, beautiful poached egg. All right, so what I'm going to do is now just turn the heat up slightly so we can get a little bit more of a simmer, and we'll give that a couple of minutes. So any other questions, please feel free to send them through, and happy to answer them. Brad, any questions coming through? Not yet. No worries. All right. Let's talk about the other attributes of induction. Now, precision cooking. Like, you can go from a high boil to a low simmer in a matter of seconds. And the same way, you can go from a low simmer to a high boil in a matter of seconds. So pretty amazing that you can get that great range of temperature so quickly. If you were using a gas cooktop, you would have your pan sitting on top of cast iron grates, which end up retaining a lot of heat. And that means that your pan that's sitting on top of those grates are going to take longer to cool down and also to heat up. So just a couple of things to keep in mind, when you're talking about precision, and being able to also hold your sauces and your stews and your and your meats even. You can actually hold them at a moderate temperature and not have to worry about anything scorching or burning on the bottom. It's really, really incredible how efficient induction is. So on our poached egg, I am actually going to turn the heat up a little bit because I want a little bit more of a simmer on here, but it's looking good so far. We have a nice little cloud of egg white. So I just want the inside to get a little bit more cooked, and then I'm going to add in the second one as well, and we'll take those out in just a couple minutes. All right, we have a question. Yes?
Do all brands have the same induction technology, and do you recommend any brand specifically?
Very good question. The question was, do all brands have the same induction technology, and is there a particular brand that I recommend? The technology is the same for the most part. The difference comes down to the interface and just the configuration. Sometimes you have a seamless induction cooktop like we're using here, which has no like little round indicators for where to place your pan, which means that you have the full range of the surface to work with. So that varies from brand to brand. This is a Gaggenau one. The Thermador Freedom does the same thing. Most other induction cooktops are going to have sort of designated circles on the cooking surface or something that indicates where you place your pan. So that's one of the biggest differences, but the interface is really, that's the main thing. Interface varies from brand to brand, but in terms of how they work, pretty even across the board.
Someone asked, how do you clean the cooktop?
Okay, the next question is, how do you clean the cooktop? Excellent question. So cleaning the cooktop, it's a glass surface, which means that you should use a non-ammoniated glass cleaner, and you can just wipe it down with a paper towel or a soft sponge. Nothing too coarse. Remember, it's glass, so you do not want it to scratch. So I would recommend you can use a paper towel with a non-ammoniated glass cleaner, and you can use also a soft sponge as well. All right, so here's our poached eggs. So once our eggs are poached, I would just keep them in a little bowl of warm water until you're ready. Yes, we have another question.
You mentioned that there's a learning curve. Are there certain foods that are a bit more difficult to cook on the
Learning curve only because it's not as obvious as gas. You don't see a flame, so that's where the learning curve comes in. So you can't actually see a hot coil like you would with even an electric cooktop, and that's where you have to kind of adjust your cooking style and learn how your particular induction cooktop works and what the numbers on your cooktop mean. What does level 2 mean versus level 9 versus your power boost. But if you are savvy in the kitchen and you enjoy cooking, that stuff is pretty straightforward. Once you practice a little bit, it'll come very naturally, especially if you just play around with it and make simple things. Make some pasta, boil some rice, and then you can see how, or just boil water. To be honest, that's the best way to learn. Just boil a little water and you'll see how quickly the temperature adjusts that way. All right, so see that? We have our pasta is done. I'm gonna turn the heat off here on my poaching water. Our pasta is done, our sauce is done. I'm just gonna add a little bit of butter and cheese because if you watched yesterday, you know I love butter. So we add butter and cheese just to thicken it up, and we're ready to plate. And of course, the benefits of cooking a meal is that you get to taste as you go. If you noticed, I did add a little pasta water here just to loosen the sauce a little bit. So just add that in there. And I believe we are doing very good on time. Now, we're already 15 minutes in, which means that we're definitely under 30 minutes. So if you wanted to estimate, we took about 15 or 10 minutes to prep all the ingredients ahead of time. That works out to 30 minutes for a full meal. All right, this tastes amazing. So I think you'll be very happy with that. Another great thing with induction, I'm gonna place these pans right behind me, is that you can actually use your cooking surface to plate on. Oh, one last thing I wanted to add here is a little lemon for brightness. So I'll add a little lemon zest and a little lemon juice as well. These flavors are so, so delicious. It's definitely a staff favorite around here. And I do have the recipe available, so if anybody wants this recipe, you can leave a comment and we will make sure to post it as well. All right, we have another question.
How long did the eggs take to poach, and did they take any different amount of time than they would?
All right, the question was how long did the eggs take to poach? Typically, it really depends on how runny you want the yolk. These eggs, I would say, I estimate around 2 to 3 minutes for them to poach perfectly. So now what I can do with my pasta, say I wasn't serving this right away, especially since it's a creamy sauce, those can tend to dry out really quickly. I can put it at a holding temperature on here, which is awesome, and it will just hold and stay warm and it won't dry out. And you would definitely get much different results on a gas cooktop. But notice also, like I said, I can place my dish right onto the cooking surface because it's not hot. It won't burn, and I can plate right on here, which is incredible. So I'm just going to transfer all my pasta there. And let's place the egg yolk or the poached egg on top. So it's got a little jiggle to it. That means we have a nice runny yolk. That yolk will, as soon as you break the egg, will basically melt right into that pasta and create an even more unctuous and a lovely sauce. All right, so another question.
Yeah, what are the key features you look for when buying an induction?
The key features that you want to look for when buying an induction cooktop, I would say, is how your layout is. A lot of people cook, everybody cooks differently. So if you have a lot of large pans, pots and pans, and awkward shaped ones, you might want a cooktop that doesn't have those little round designated cooking areas. Also, you want to see different sizes and different interfaces. Some, such as the Thermidor and the Gaggenau, you can program them in different ways. You can set them on a gradual scale where one side of the burner you can simmer on, and as you move the pan up, you can start to sear. So you can program it in that way. There's a lot of different interfaces available for different types of induction. So you just have to find the type that suits your needs and what you'll practically use in the kitchen as well. So I just want to show you guys the close-up there of this gorgeous pasta dish with asparagus, shallots, a creamy sauce, poached eggs. 15 minutes. Pretty amazing. And look at that. Minimal cleanup. I just had to move that parchment paper down, and that was it. So let's get rid of that, and we're going to move on to our next round of cooking. And I think we might have, do we have another? No, we're good. All right. Never mind. No, I thought you were raising your hand because there was another question. All good. So, so please feel free to keep the questions coming in. Happy to answer them. I'm just going to flip our kitchen around here. We have a whole nother dish to make. So the next dish we're going to do is a seared steak, along with some green beans, sauteed in the pan, and some classic mashed potatoes as well. Let me just grab some water, which I should have done earlier. All right, so almost there. Let me just grab that. So we have some water for mashed potatoes. I'm going to set up my pan for the milk and the butter that we're going to heat up for the mashed potatoes. I will also use a cast iron pan to show you guys how that works with our induction cooktop. And I know there's going to be a lot of splatter when it comes to searing. So in order to make my cleanup a lot easier today, I will put the parchment paper down. One thing actually you do want to remember when using parchment, don't cover up the control panel because that's going to mess up the functions of it. It won't respond. So just keep that in mind. All right, almost set up here. And I just need to grab my taters. Here we go. All right. Ooh, had a little spillage. That's all right. Okay, so let's just give it a quick wipe. There was a little bit of splatter, but we are good to go. All right, so I have, I'm not happy with that. Let's switch the configuration here. Okay. So I think we should be good to go now. So this is going to be my searing pan. This is going to be my pan for my milk, for the mashed potatoes, and that's the mashed potatoes. So let's turn our cooktop on. Okay. I will get the potato liquid boiling, so let's get that to a high boil. I'm going to give that a boost as well, so we can get a concentration of heat going there. Power boost is good to go. In my smaller pan here, I'm going to place the milk and the butter, which is going to season our potatoes. So that just needs to melt down. Perfect. And then in this pan, I'm going to start sauteing my green beans as well, which we'll need a couple minutes to tenderize. Believe it or not, the steak is actually the quickest part of the whole meal, so we'll do that last. All right. Another thing to remember, whenever you are cooking with induction, the pans heat up so quickly, you never want to preheat a pan before you have anything in it. You could easily scorch, burn, or destroy your cooking device or cooking surface. So make sure there is oil or water or something in the pan before you start to work with it. It is very important that you don't burn it. I already have a little bit of heat on there, so I'm going to go ahead and add my green beans to the pan. And I can smell the olive oil already, which means we are good to go there. And I already have a boil starting on my water for the potatoes. So we're going, we're moving along. All right, we have a question.
Someone was wondering what that on the side.
Very good question. The one I hid under all my trays. Yes, very good question. So this is called a teppan. A teppan is essentially a griddle, but it's made of like a smoother stainless steel versus a rolled steel that you would use for built-in griddles that you would get, or cast iron as well. This one is a module, so you can get this as an individual piece that would just get plopped into your countertop. It is, not plopped in, you have to have very precise measurements to use that. So yes, a teppan you can sear on, you can saute on. If you've ever been to a Japanese restaurant, you have probably seen them use that to saute vegetables on or make onion towers. There's lots and lots of options with that. But that's a good question. Thank you. All right, now back to cooking. All right. Onion volcanoes, that's what it is, yep. All right, I'm just gonna add some shallots to this. Our butter's already melting and we have some good boils on our water here. I'm gonna add a little bit of water as well. Okay guys, keep the questions coming. I love these questions. They help my time go by as well. I'm just gonna add a little water to the pan here for our green beans. It's a good cooking method also. You can saute and kind of steam in the pan at the same time. So just remember that water is going to evaporate pretty quickly, so keep an eye on it. So now let's go ahead and sear our steak. I'm using cast iron again right here to show you that you can use traditional pans in a induction cooktop as well. So when you're searing, always use a neutral oil like canola or vegetable. You definitely want oil that can maintain high temperatures. Olive oil tends to burn because it has a low smoke point. So you definitely need to use something with a high smoke point if you're searing.
What about avocado?
Yes, you can use avocado oil as well. It's pretty flavorless. So if you have access to it, I think it tends to be a little bit more expensive than your standard canola or vegetable, but if you can get your hands on it, it's definitely a great and nutritious oil to cook with as well. All right. Green beans are looking good. Our water is boiling here for our potatoes, so I'm going to put those right in. Perfect. And I'm going to just dump this water. Be right back. All right, but our meal is coming together pretty quickly, guys. So I did season my steak with salt and pepper. I got a little smoke on the pan, and into the pan it goes. And there we go. Our milk is boiling too, which means now I'm just going to hold it and keep it warm. So, there we go. Okay, perfect. Going to do another drizzle of olive oil here. All right, guys, keep the questions coming. I'm loving it. Another great thing with your induction cooktop is you can set a timer on here too. So I'm going to have it go for our potatoes, which are going to require about 10 minutes to soften. And what's our time check right now? 28. We're doing great. We are totally ahead of the game. I made 2 meals in 30 minutes. How about that? All right. All right, so now I'm just going to adjust the heat a little bit here on my green beans as well. Turn that down. And let's see how our steak is doing. Oh my gosh, look at that color. That was there. You saw that go in. Matter of minutes. Already have a beautiful sear. So what you can do is add some sprigs of thyme and add in some butter, and we're going to baste our steak with that as well. All right, we are doing so good on time right now. This is great. I'm going to give my potatoes another boost as well. Perfect. All right. So basting, whenever you are cooking in a pan or cooking a steak, you want to make sure to put a little butter in there with the herbs and just baste it so you get all that unctuous butter flavor and the herbs infused into the steak. So this is a great chefy trick that you can definitely use at home. It doesn't take a lot of effort, but make sure you keep a towel handy. The handle of your pan can get pretty hot. So, oh my gosh, look at that gorgeous caramelization and color. Now, this is a ribeye, so it does have a bit of fat there on the side. I'll flip it over and make sure that that fat renders out as well on either side. So we have a nice even cook on it. All right, so far so good. I think we are looking pretty good here. My green beans are looking great. I'm gonna add a little lemon zest to these guys too. We talked all about the high temperature capabilities. We've talked about the low temperature capabilities as well. The ability to hold things. I'm holding my milk and my butter right here. It's not going to boil over or burn, which is incredible. And what I'm gonna do after my steak sears, Traditionally, I would transfer it to an oven. I'm just gonna hold it right here on the cooktop while the rest of my rest of my ingredients finish cooking. And that's just gonna show how even and consistent the temperature is. The time I'm gonna remove so it doesn't burn in the pan. All right, we have another question coming in.
Do you have any, is there any difference with how things stick to pans with gas or induction?
Like in the pan itself, how things stick. All right, very good question. So I know a lot of people have trouble cooking with, say, stainless steel pans because they find that when they try to sear, your chicken or whatever protein you're cooking might stick. Now that's more because your ingredient hasn't seared well enough, which means that you're flipping it too quickly. So it has nothing to do with the pan, it has to do with the technique. When you're searing, you want to get your pan nice and hot. You want to make sure you have some kind of fat or oil in there. And you want to make sure that you get a crust. Once that crust is formed, then it should just flip over seamlessly. So it really has to do with technique more than pan. I hope that answers your question. Another really handy kitchen gadget to have is this digital thermometer. So I'm just going to check the internal temp of our meat. It's looking good, and we are just gonna hold it here because this is going to slowly rise from the inside, and we're gonna have a beautiful medium rare steak in just a couple minutes. But I'm just gonna continue to sort of flip it and make sure all the fat is rendered off of there. All right, I love the questions. Keep them coming. So to our green beans here, I added some butter. I'm gonna add a little bit of lemon and lemon juice as well, and I'll taste it as well. But I mean, this is a full meal. And even if I was doing 2 pieces of steak in there or a larger pan with 4 pieces of steak, it would take the same amount of time. Great. Our potatoes are roaring now. This is wonderful. All right. Beautiful. I am going to taste the green beans. Perfect, they're done. A little al dente with a crunch, so I'm gonna hold that as well. The wonderful thing about induction, you don't have to worry about it scorching or burning. It's gonna hold, and they're going to stay nice and warm. They're not gonna burn. They're not going to dry out or anything. So I'm just gonna add, for texture, some toasted nuts on there. Beautiful. This steak is looking amazing, so I might start to rest it at this point because we have about 4 minutes left on our potatoes. So I can actually remove it and rest it for a little bit while we wait for our potatoes to finish. So we'll just rest that right here. And the pan, I'll turn off as well. All right, and if you wanted to, you could make a quick pan sauce in here as well. You could take all the fat and the drippings from your steak, add in some shallots, some herbs, deglaze it with some wine, which was my intention today until I realized I forgot to bring those ingredients. So next time we will deglaze our pan, but you could add some wine, scrape up all the brown bits on the bottom, and then make a quick pan sauce. But that's just extra. We have all the main components of our dish done. Our green beans look amazing. And again, for this recipe, I'll definitely share it if anybody's interested, but pretty simple for the green beans, just shallots, butter, a little bit of olive oil to saute in, green beans, lemon zest, lemon juice, salt and pepper, and then I put some toasted pistachios on there for a little crunch. You could use almonds as well. Almonds would work wonderfully as well. So just 3 more minutes or so left on there. Why don't we go ahead and, I was gonna say slice into the steak, but I do wanna give it a couple more minutes just to rest. The important part when cooking proteins is allowing them to rest sufficiently. So that means that all the juices that start to cook out of the protein get time to get reabsorbed back into the protein while it rests. So when you're slicing into it, you don't have a big mess on your cutting board. If you don't allow it to rest enough, you end up with sort of juices and all that red liquid, the blood and everything sort of seeping out. So you definitely want to allow it to rest sufficiently. So for a steak that size, 4 minutes is perfect. If it was larger, maybe 6 to 8 minutes. Huge roasts, potentially 20 to 30 minutes. If you had a big turkey, they say to rest them for at least an hour before slicing into them. So it just depends on the size of the meat, really. So a couple more minutes for that. All right, I think we're doing really good on time. Just gonna make sure my liquid here for my potatoes is mixed through. So in there, it was just milk and butter. So always make sure your milk and butter is nice and warm. When you add them to your mashed potatoes, you'll get a much creamier consistency. If you try to add cold milk and butter, you'll end up getting a gummier consistency. You want it smooth and velvety and delicious. So keep those nice and warm. All right, any questions coming through? I think we're doing good with the questions. Let me just grab a sip of water. Okay, let's slice into the steak. I'll show you guys how beautiful this thing looks. Okay, perfect. So first of all, I want everybody to see this gorgeous color and caramelization. Beautiful color all around. Even the fat has rendered out really nicely. So show you guys the color from the inside. It's always a fun surprise when you slice into a steak and see how beautifully it's cooked, or you try to see the color. Whenever I make steak for my husband, the first question I ask is, how is it cooked inside? So I hope you can see how beautiful that color came out. It's rested perfectly, so not a lot of liquid on there. And we have the perfect pink color all the way through. So beautifully cooked steak, and we did that right on our induction cooktop without any oven or anything to help it along. So I think we're doing pretty good. Slice that all the way through, and our potatoes should be good to go as well. All right. So the potatoes, it's been about 10 minutes. Let's see how tender these are. Take a quick look here. Yeah, those are tender. Perfect. So what I'm going to do is just quickly strain them right here. And let's transfer that pan there. This one, let's bring this one down to holding temperature. And this one, we're going to use to mash up our potatoes. And then we'll be ready to plate in just a couple more minutes. Easy peasy. So, you can mash right into your pan. And I did salt the water as well, so the potatoes will be slightly seasoned, but we'll taste them again once we add our milk and butter. I used unsalted butter. It's much better to use unsalted butter when cooking, so you can adjust the salt on your own. All right, so we give it a nice quick mash, and we add in our milk and butter mixture. Now you can adjust that, kind of eyeball it to your personal preference. Some people like nice and creamy mashed potatoes. Some people like them a little firmer. I find those are a little drier, but you'll notice like potatoes can absorb a lot of liquid, a lot of salt too. So if you do want them creamier, just kind of add it gradually until you get it to the consistency you want. And potatoes will dry as they sit, so make sure you taste and adjust as you cook. So let me taste that. Oh, really hot. Woo! It's really hot, but I'm gonna add a little salt and pepper to that. But you can see our whole meal just came together in a matter of minutes, which makes me very excited. So these are kind of chunkier, but if you wanted really smooth potatoes, my go-to is always using a ricer or a food mill, and you'll ensure a much smoother consistency. But for our demo purposes today, and I think most people at home would probably be using a potato masher. I know my husband does, even though we have a rice mill at home, but this is just easier for him. So, hey, it definitely does the job, and you get some delicious results with it. So it's just personal preference. Yeah. So the question was, is the interface for this cooktop easy to use? Absolutely. So what this cooktop has is one central screen, and then when you place your pan down, you'll have a little icon automatically show up, and that is what you're going to use to adjust your temperatures. So when you remove a pan, that little icon will disappear. So it will only appear when it detects a pan on there. You know what I'm going to do is give this a little wipe down for you too. So, Zoomed in. Okay, so is that a little clearer? Okay. So see, I removed this pan. Now that little icon is going to disappear. I'll remove this pan, and that icon is going to disappear. So as soon as I put the pan back, it appears back up, and it actually remembers the temperature that that pan was set at when I removed it. So when I switched these pans earlier, this pan was still set at 9, which is the highest temp for boil. So I had to make sure to adjust it back down to a lower temp, to a holding temp, so I didn't scorch and burn my green beans. So guys, now we can plate. I just want to taste these one more time because you always have to make sure the salt is perfect in mashed potatoes. And it is. Excellent. All right, so let's get our potatoes down on the plate. There. Followed by our gorgeous green beans. And followed by our perfectly cooked steak as well. All right, almost done. You know what? Let's bring this guy down here. Sorry, did I change it up on you? That was a game time decision. All right. And last but not least, let's plate up our gorgeous steak. That was perfectly cooked. Okay. Perfect. And just for my final garnish here, I'm going to put a few more of these toasted nuts on there. And just give the plate a little wipe. All right, there we go. Another 30-minute meal. It was actually less than 30 minutes, all on induction, made to perfection. So beautiful steak, searing, high temperature there. Matter of minutes, we boiled those potatoes in no time at all, and we have our sauteed green beans as well. All right. So guys, thank you so much for joining today. Again, this is all in honor of our home show, which is happening this weekend, the 13th to the 15th. You can, make an appointment through our website, yaleappliance.com, in either one of our showrooms, either the Framingham, Dorchester, or Hanover. And just remember, 0% financing and up to $1,200 in package credits. So please feel free to leave comments. If you have any questions about what we cooked today, or if you want the recipe, leave a comment on our Facebook page, and we will see you again. We're doing this all week long. Tomorrow, Steve is going to be doing a a live demonstration or a live talk, and I'll be covering 2 more topics Wednesday and Thursday. So check our Facebook page or Instagram for all of the information. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you soon.